This is the one about the haunted Red Doors Saloon in Key West, Florida. Located at 800 Caroline Street, the building was constructed in 1868. Shortly thereafter, it was leased as a cigar factory and ran as a cigar factory until the early 1900s. The cigar industry began winding down on the island. For years afterwards, it ran as a grocery and hardware store, and because of its location near the waterfront, the clientele was a mix of both locals and commercial fishermen. By the 1950s, shrimping was becoming a very important industry on the island, and ultimately the building became a shrimper's bar with various names and owners ranging from Conch Gardens, Wagon Wheel Inn, and the Red Doors Inn, for obvious reasons. And this is where things really started to take a little bit of a dark turn. I looked back at newspaper clippings from the 50s, and I started to see articles about raids. This one's about a man who was in somewhat of a mysterious incident and ended up critically injured and in the hospital. He did end up passing a few days later. And just for fun, I threw this one in to give you an idea of some of the characters that were hanging out at this establishment. This was a liars club. If you pause it and zoom in, you can read and see some of the nicknames that are here. They're funny. So these guys got together at the bar and tried to outlie each other and be mentored by this guy who was evidently the best liar. I just showed you every newspaper clipping I was able to find about this bar in the 1950s, which I haven't yet told you was also known by another name at this time, the Bucket of Blood. This place was known as one of the toughest, if not the toughest bar on the Gulf Coast during this era. It was given this nickname because there were so many beatings, stabbings, and assaults, as well as, rumor has it, a number of that were all kept very quiet. You'll notice that this is a 2-story building, and the second story was used, how shall I say this, to help those who were seeking a woman's company. In fact, many years later, when the building was being renovated, carpenters were opening up the walls upstairs. They found dozens of old, dusty, empty wallets, presumably thrown there by ladies of the night who had picked their clients' pockets. By 1972, things had changed on the island and the bar ended up closing. But needless to say, it has quite a long history, and the Bucket of Blood era was a pretty dark era. Almost all of the paranormal activity reported at 800 Caroline has happened upstairs. Most often, it is reported by renters that their beds start moving by themselves. People have also reported hearing gunshots in the area with no modern explanation. This is a ladies' boutique nowadays. One thing I think is really interesting about this property is that it's actually kind of hard to find information about it. The building is over 150 years old, and I'm normally able to find pictures from many different eras, as well as quite a lot of information about the paranormal activity. But 800 Caroline, I kind of think she wants to stay a mystery. That said, if you or anyone you know has ever experienced any paranormal activity at the Red Door Saloon, please send me a message because I'm so curious to hear your experience. And if you love Key West haunted history, be sure to follow because I have a lot more up my sleeve for you this month.